This is Behind His Smile, a Casey Faith Suspense Thriller, Book 2, written by Rylie Dark, read by Olivia. Prologue. This was going to be a killer run. Gripping his weathered surfboard, Mace Redwood paddled further out, picking his spot carefully as he eyed the approaching line of breakers. The surf could not be more perfect this morning. It was early fall, and at this time of the year, the combination of weather and winds always produced the best breakers. Huge, long, and rolling. Wave after wave, similar in size but just different enough in character to keep the adrenaline flowing. It was surfers' nirvana. The waves were perfect throughout the day, but he preferred solitude, something that wasn't usually possible on the Greenpoint, New Jersey peninsula this time of the year. With the peninsula getting busier and busier every year, Mace was finding the crowds intrusive. To avoid them, he'd started going out in the pre-dawn. Early mornings this time of the year were too cold for the average surfer, who preferred to wait until the sun was up. He personally loved the gray low light that brightened the horizon, often dense with cloud at this time of the year as the weather began to change. Sea temperature wasn't a problem in a wetsuit. Best of all, it felt as if he had the area completely to himself. That was what he wanted. He was a loner by nature. He checked the horizon around him, kicking his legs and leaning on his board to get as much height as he could. No other bobbing heads in sight, and nobody on the beach. There was a small boat a couple of 100 yards away, but he couldn't see anyone in it. A buzzing from somewhere overhead distracted him, but he didn't bother glancing up, not when he had the lines of surf to look at. It felt good to focus on them now. He knew he had some tough decisions to make. Things had gone badly wrong last night in a way he'd never expected them to. As he waited for the line of breakers, he thought back to that smoky bar and the simmering conflict that had erupted into full-scale war. It had been coming for a while, that he knew. Old grudges were like scars. They never went away. You just learned to ignore them. He had a few scars too, mostly from surfing. At the age of 48, he was still a risk-taker, but not actively reckless, the way he'd been 3 decades earlier. The long zigzag scar on his right ankle was testimony to a time he'd thought he could avoid a jagged series of rocks and surf his way out of the riptides that coursed through the north of the peninsula in late winter. There was another scar on his shoulder, from another encounter with rocks, and he'd sprained his right ankle once too often, and in the mornings, it was starting to feel achy and stiff. Signs of age, creeping into a life he'd always assumed to be evergreen.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?